Vamos começar pontualmente, então. Muito bom dia a todos, bom dia e sejam bem-vindos à nossa semana de radiologia, que a gente está promovendo na GE Healthcare aqui no Brasil. Eu sou o Rafael Palombini, para quem não me conhece, eu sou o CEO Latam da GE Healthcare. E eu estou muito feliz com essa semana, com essa iniciativa, com essa forma de conectar e a gente dar sequência numa série de conversas, debates, aprendizados que a gente faz em conjunto aqui. Nós desenvolvemos também vários conteúdos e webinars com temas relevantes, né, super relevantes para o setor da saúde e com acesso gratuito. Então, basicamente, é essa dinâmica que a gente vem trabalhando. Durante essa semana aqui tem vários webinars e aqui é um deles, né, que nós vamos trabalhar juntos aqui e estar juntos. Então, hoje a gente vai ter nessa sessão François Ferriat. Ele é o líder de soluções digitais, com foco na gestão de sucesso do cliente, na GE Healthcare. Ele é baseado na França e nós vamos discutir aqui, e ele vai nos falar como combinar a inteligência de dados com a excelência operacional, a excelência clínica e o crescimento financeiro do departamento de radiologia. E como que essa combinação provê um atendimento de excelência, centrado no paciente, e que são esses dois pilares para elementos fundamentais de qualidade no cuidado do paciente, que é o nosso trabalho aqui na GE Healthcare. Vou falar aqui um pouquinho em inglês para introduzir o François. Hello, François. So glad that you are with us today. I hope you can hear us well. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Great, thanks, Rafael, and thank you for switching to English. It's a little bit easier for me. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk today about what we do around analytics at GE Healthcare. As you were mentioning, I'm a digital solution leader for GE, and I'm based in Paris, in France. And for the last few years, I've been leading the delivery of what we call the Excellence Program in Europe. And so in the next minutes, I'm going to give you further explanation about what those programs are and how they may answer to the modern imaging department daily challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Eu desejo que vocês aproveitem bastante essa sessão. Vai ter, acho que uma dinâmica bem interessante e sucesso a todos nós aí nessa conversa. Vou passar aqui para o Leonardo Gross, que também vai se apresentar e vai dar a sequência aqui. Léo, com você.
Obrigado, Rafael Palombini. É isso aí. O conteúdo está sensacional. Eu sou Leonardo Gross, líder de soluções digitais de serviços para a América Latina e host desse webinar series de hoje. Aliás, essa semana de radiologia, GE Healthcare está incrível. São ao todo 19 GE Webinar Series, mais de 30 vídeos exclusivos. Estamos com mais de 4.000 inscritos até o lançamento ontem, na Semana da Radiologia. Ainda dá tempo para vocês se inscreverem nos outros Webinar Series. Parabéns ao time da GE, que fez acontecer esse super relevante evento 100% online, entregando excelente conteúdo com toda a segurança, certo? Pessoal, o certificado será enviado por e-mail após o evento. Bem, pessoal, sejam todos muito bem-vindos. Já vamos ter o François Ferriat, que fala diretamente da França. François tem duplo mestrado em gerenciamento de projetos e engenharia biomédica, e nos últimos 3 anos ele tem liderado os projetos de análise de desempenho da GE, de ressonância magnética e ultrassom, na União Europeia. Seus hobbies são esporte como corrida, rugby e boxe, e gosta muito de viajar pelo mundo. O François vai nos brindar hoje com o tema Potencialize a capacidade e eficiência operacional do seu equipamento por meio da inteligência de dados para um melhor atendimento mais acessível e centrado no paciente. É um tema bastante premente, né? Especialmente nos tempos atuais. Esse webinar é para você que quer dinamizar o seu departamento de diagnóstico por imagem orientado por dados, independentemente da modalidade, seja ressonância, mamografia, ultrassom, não importa. Não importa se esses equipamentos são da GE ou de outras marcas. A gente vai falar sobre soluções diagnósticas, agnósticas combinado com o estado da arte em consultoria clínica e em análise de dados do nosso time de gestão do sucesso do cliente, para que você atinja seus objetivos de produtividade e, consequentemente, ofereça uma melhor experiência ao seu paciente. Certo? Bom, por favor, usem aqui esse botão QIA que vocês estão vendo aqui no visor. Está na barra inferior, como vocês podem ver aqui na tela. Por favor, tragam suas perguntas. Nós teremos o Noé Ioitiro, especialista de vendas e produto de ressonância magnética, como moderador dessa sessão e vai nos ajudar a endereçar suas perguntas ao François. Combinado? Noé, prazer em tê-lo aqui conosco.
Bom dia, pessoal. Bom dia, Léo. Good morning, François. Um prazer estar aqui com vocês. E vamos alimentar esse de perguntas aí.
É isso aí. Agora nós queremos saber dos seus desafios atuais. Responde para a gente. Qual é o principal desafio que a sua instituição enfrenta na medicina diagnóstica em relação à eficiência operacional, excelência clínica ou crescimento financeiro? Letra A, identificar e reduzir tempo de espera, backlog dos seus pacientes para realizar exames. B, padronizar, otimizar diferentes protocolos em diferentes unidades e equipamentos de diferentes fornecedores. C, se você acha que é reduzir o tempo da realização do exame até o recebimento do laudo, mantendo a qualidade do cuidado. D, identificar oportunidades de treinamento da equipe a partir do monitoramento do desempenho do departamento. Ou se você acha que são todas as anteriores. Para responder essa enquete é muito fácil. Ó. Clica aqui no poll, logo na barra inferior e responde lá, tá bom? Eu vou dar um tempinho para vocês responderem e logo em seguida eu mostro o resultado. Enquanto vocês respondem, eu vou compartilhar um vídeo incrível sobre como a gente vê o futuro da medicina diagnóstica daqui a alguns anos. Uma medicina muito mais proativa, preditiva, preventiva e ativada por dados. Confiram.
O mundo muda, mas algumas coisas nunca mudam. Momentos difíceis podem fazer o tempo parar, mas o amor pode fazer uma vida passar num piscar de olhos. E você disse que algum dia eu entenderia isso. Aí eu pisquei. E você se foi. Desligar alarme.
Bom dia, Sophie. Como você dormiu?
Você me diz.
447 minutos de sono confirmado, 34,2% RM. Dormiu como um bebê.
Aumentar a temperatura do piso.
Aumentando a temperatura do piso.
E comece a abrir a água, por favor. Vou tomar um banho.
Claro, Sophie.
Mamãe, adivinhe, é uma menina.
Eu agendei uma consulta para você na microclínica. Seu histórico médico completo e os resultados do autoexame dessa manhã foram enviados ao seu médico de cuidados primários, notificado de sua consulta.
Sophie, estávamos esperando por você. Eu sou Lily, sua tecnóloga. Deixe-me mostrar sua cápsula pessoal. Por onde começo? Nossas cápsulas irão te ajudar no processo. Elas são equipadas com sensores.
Eu lembro de você me dizendo como você iria. Cantava para mim antes de eu nascer.
Tudo vai ficar bem. Antes de fazermos mais testes, examinaremos os resultados do seu autoexame. Mas primeiro, vamos dar a você a atmosfera sensorial que você solicitou.
Que você estava convencida que eu teria um gosto musical bom.
Suba no scanner e relaxe o corpo. Fique parada e 3, 2, 1. Isso. Levante o braço acima da cabeça. Permaneça imóvel e 3, 2, 1. Bom.
Como um simples pensamento em mim foi o suficiente para que o amor se tornasse mais forte do que qualquer coisa que você já conheceu. As coisas invisíveis que nos consomem, amor, o medo de lidar com isso, para mim é diferente hoje.
Você está ótima. Tudo bem, agora você só vai se deitar para mim.
Enfrentando exatamente a mesma coisa que tirou você de mim, você me disse uma vez que podemos olhar tão profundamente em nós mesmos que perdemos o que é mais importante.
Então, receio que a ressonância magnética mostre uma lesão suspeita na mama esquerda. Com base nas aparências e resultados do aplicativo de inteligência artificial, a probabilidade de ser maligno é alta. Essa é a notícia não tão boa. A boa notícia é que a pegamos cedo e...
Eu tenho pensado nisso ultimamente, mas agora vejo algo que era mais difícil para você ver na época.
Vamos ver nossos próximos passos.
Esperança, no mundo que me rodeia e nas pessoas que estão aqui para me guiar. Você me disse que era algo que eu encontraria quando mais precisasse, e eu tenho.
Oi, mãe. O que eles disseram?
O que eu esperava.
Olha ela.
Eu só queria que você estivesse aqui hoje para ver e para conhecer sua bisneta. Ela tem seu sorriso.
Está tudo pronto para a festa de amanhã, Sophie. A GE acredita no poder das tecnologias emergentes para aprimorar a saúde de precisão e transformar o cuidado ao paciente. As perspectivas para a saúde nunca foram tão boas.
Bom, pessoal, vamos aqui ao resultado da nossa enquete. Então, como vocês podem ver, a gente teve ali 17%, 67% diz que são todas as opções, então esse é um grande desafio. 16% agora, reduzir o tempo da realização do exame até o recebimento do laudo, mantendo a qualidade do cuidado. Então, esse é um grande desafio e vamos ter oportunidade bastante para comentar. Agora vamos lá. Hi, François. So, François, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, we know digital technologies can play a powerful role in improving the health of people worldwide, but it can also play a powerful role in the financial health of healthcare companies, right? So that's what we'll be talking about. We are excited to hear from you how we can shine a bright light on diagnostic radiology performance, how our customer can benefit from GE's excellence program to ensure they make informed decisions, data-driven, to increase their operation efficiency, clinical excellence, and or financial growth. So, François, the stage is yours. Thanks again for joining today. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you very much. So just if you can confirm that everybody can see my screen right now, so at least we are okay. I think it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So for the last 5 to 10 years, you as healthcare professionals have probably seen that there was a huge endeavor from the healthcare company to understand what this broad subject of digital, what data can bring to the healthcare world. And actually, in medical imaging, the results were 2 kinds of applications. So the one that you know the better probably are what we call pixel application. So we are going to leverage the image directly, the data from the image directly to bring outcomes to the customer. So for example, you've got artificial intelligence model where you're going to learn things from the images, detect specific patterns, and then help the radiologist to take the decisions. But you also have a second part, which is called non-pixel application, where you're going to leverage the text information stored in the images, the informations that are stored in the information systems, such as timestamps, protocol names, acquisition parameters. And at GE Healthcare, this initiative around non-pixel digital application is what we call excellence program. And we do think that we are having quite an innovative approach because we're talking about digital project, but you will see in the presentation to come that for us, it's not only digital, it's not only data. It's also about how the human expertise can help you to achieve the outcomes. And I want to show you with this presentation how through this data intelligence plus human expertise, we do realize that we can help you to unlock device capacity, operational efficiency for better targeted and more accessible patient care. The feedback that we do hear a lot sometimes from the field regarding the digital application is that there may be a disconnect. There may be a disconnect between what you as healthcare professionals you're expecting and what us as an healthcare company we are providing. And for us, it's the worst. We are like investing money in some solution. And at the end of the day, we do realize that those solutions, they are not serving your needs. So to build this model around digital application, we have decided to take the problem in the other way around, meaning that we have decided to start from the challenges, then understand what kind of outcomes you can expect from those solutions, and then build the solution. So talking about those challenges in the modern healthcare world, you know that very well. It was what the question that we're asking in the initial poll. So the first part can be, for example, about patient safety. You asked, for example, to monitor the dose of the patient. You asked to be sure that the exams that you're doing are reproducible, meaning that if as a patient I'm coming today and I'm coming back in 6 months, I will have the exact same level of care. You also asked to reduce delays in care to ensure that there is a smooth workflow all along the day. And finally, you also asked to improve the overall care process, meaning that you need to maintain the patient care, the patient satisfaction at quite a high level. But of course, it's not that easy. You've got challenges, and in front of that, you've got constraints. So constraints such as managing better the medical reimbursement. So for example, to plan for your future investment, to plan for the future devices that you may buy or the future application that you may buy. You face an increasing human and material costs. And finally, more than ever, we can stop talking about patients. They are consumers, right? They are consumers because they're asking to be provided a certain level of care, right? They're expecting a lot from the medical imaging exams, right? And if we convert these challenges into outcomes, this is the things that we've been hearing from the ground. Okay, so coming back to medical imaging, to answer to those challenges, this is the outcomes that we hear the most. So, for example, doing more exams per day, so having a bigger number of slots, without, of course, moving the opening hours because it requires more staff. You are also expecting to standardize your practices, to reduce the waiting time and the backlogs, to optimize the protocols. And if we just stop for a moment, we do realize that at this point, those are super specific challenges that are specific to your environment. What does standardizing practices mean? For an hospital in Brazil, from an hospital in France, for 2 different hospitals in Brazil, which are not in the same region or even in the same region, you're having super specific needs. You're not having the same imaging fleet. You're not having the same staff. You're not having the same resources. So this is a super complicated problem. And we do believe that to achieve those outcomes, to answer to those challenges, you need two things. First of all, you need visibility. You need to know where you stand. You need to know what you're doing so far. You need to understand where there is room for improvement. That's the first one. And you also need methodology. You need to know where to start, right? There's a lot of issues, but where should you start? And at GE, with our excellence program, we do believe that those excellence programs are the way to bring these outcomes to you. And you'll see, I was talking about visibility and methodology. The excellence program, they are made of two pieces. So the most obvious one, the first one, is the data intelligence part. So basically here, we are talking about dashboards that are going to get data from your different devices, from your information system, and that they are going to display this data in a comprehensive way. We are not talking about dashboards that we are, like copy paste from the industry. They are really adapted to your specific challenges. They were built with our customers, right? And on the second parts, you have this visibility. And to have the methodology part, we have added what we call customer enablement. We can even call that coaching. So basically, this is data analytics and clinical experts that will help you to bring sustainable change, that will help you to understand this data, that will help you to train on this data, that will support you all along the decision process, that will support you to implement the changes thanks to this data. So we do believe that thanks to these two bricks, the visibility part and the methodology part, this is how you can achieve the outcomes that we were talking about before. So better patient experience, work on the way you allocate your money, work on the different, on the quality of your processes, and ensure a high level of access for your imaging exams. And what is important also to understand is the presentation of today. We are talking about something that is happening. We are talking about something that is real. So just talking about what's happening in Europe, because that's the market I'm working in. We are talking about more than 600 customers. We are talking about more than 4,000 devices connected. We are talking about more than 50% of them being non-G, meaning that we are having an expertise on the human part about the data analytics, but we are also having an expertise on the integration of those data. We do know how to deal with the data from different devices, different vendors. As I was saying in the introduction, and maybe it will be quite new for a presentation around analytics, but the main focus on this presentation will be on this customer enablement piece, so on this coaching piece. So over the next slide, I'm going to show you what's happening all along this support process. I'm going to give you a concrete example with our customer to show you that, once again, this is happening. One quick analogy, because this one is quite easy to understand. Just imagine that tomorrow you want to train for a marathon, for example. So you want, for example, to have a specific objective, which is to run it under 3 hours. So you just buy yourself those smartwatch. They are going to give you your heart rate, your speed, your time per kilometer, whatever. And at the end of the day, when you want really to improve your performances, you want to understand what this data means. You want to understand how you should take this data into account to achieve your specific objectives. And this is where you will need a sports coach. The sports coach will train you. He will tell you, this is what this information means. But he will also tell you, you've got your data on your watch, but you also have your environment that is important. The number of training that you're doing, what you're eating, how much you're sleeping. So the sports coach is really going to take the data, but also take into account the environment, take into account the objectives that you have to be sure that you're well using this data to achieve your goals. So now coming back to medical imaging, why for us this coaching part is essential for the success. So it's a little bit like in sport. The truth is, you hear about data a lot in every field, okay? But the journey between the data to the outcomes, from the data to the outcomes, it's quite long. It's quite long. To get insights from the data, you need to have analytical skills. You need to have a knowledge of the environment. Once again, you get data from one hospital, you get data from another hospital. They may look the same, but they are not extracted from the same environment. So that's something you need to take into account. And once you've got those insights, to go up to the level where you take decisions thanks to those insights and where you can really measure outcomes thanks to those decisions, there's also a strategy to follow. And you have also a way to follow the implementation of those changes. And that is super important. And this is where we do think that we can help, because we can provide you some resources in that. We are going to provide you a strong expertise around analytical, around clinical, to interpret those insights. And finally, we are going to provide you a change management strategy, and we are going to build a team around those projects, so a team of both G and different actors of your imaging department to drive sustainable outcomes. On our side, just a quick point, what does success mean? What's a successful excellence program? What's a successful program around digital? And how do we measure this success? So for us, it's based on 3 different points. So first of all, I'm really kicking an open door here, but that's the customer satisfaction. For us, it's important to support you to build a strong base for the project. It means that we need to understand your needs, we need to build a team, we need to build a timeline to have a strong base on which we can work. Secondly, what we call the adoption enablement. It means we are going to share our expertise with you around the digital world and the digital tool. We are going to help you to make sure that this tool is implemented well in your daily workflow. And finally, and of course, the most important, we want you to have outcomes out of those projects. It's not about adding one software on the top of the 10s that you already have and do nothing with it. It's really about doing something with it, have measurable outcomes out of this digital tool and out of this project. And those 3 points, they are really requiring a clear methodology. So what I can propose you now is we will go through the excellence program life cycle, and we will understand with concrete example, once again, with real example from our customer in Europe, how we are able to bring success to our customer. So the excellence program life cycle that you can see on the top, it's even starting at the commercial discussion level. That's what we call the discovering phase. So in order to find a commercial agreement, we are already going to work in a partnership mode with our customer. We are going to discuss about the IT architecture to be put in place. We have dedicated team for that. We are going to discuss about the coaching plan to implement, the number of days of support that you need, according to our experience and according to your specific needs and environment. And we are going to discuss about the financing mode of the project. So here we are usually talking about subscription, meaning that you will have to pay for a fixed fee per year, and it would provide you an access to the software and some support, some human support from GE. And just to give you a concrete example of how we can innovate even on this step. So this is an example in Spain, in Clínica Centro, and the idea here was to work on an MR excellence program, so leveraging MR data. And here the customer was looking for to increase patient throughput and manage the initial investment in order to share the benefits from the project. So we decided to go for what we call the benefit sharing model. So what you can see on the screen here is, at first we defined a model where they would pay a fixed fee of 25K per year. And at the end of the first year of the project, we would have a look of how much were we able to help them doing more exams. So for example, they were doing 1,000 exams at the end of the first year. They were doing 800 exams initially, so it means 200 additional exams, and we can share the benefit out of these additional exams that we obtain thanks to the project. Okay, so on the first year, the deal was we as GE are taking 30% of this benefit, the customer is keeping 70%, and there was a different model for the years to come. So of course, to work on this model, we need to define a baseline to understand what's the average exam that I'm doing initially, what's the benefit that I'm doing out of one exam. So we have a clear legal framework to work on those kind of financing mode. And not going to go into details right here because I'm going to do that right after. But here the result was quite great. We were able to have an increase of the throughput thanks to some scheduling improvements. And at the end of the day, they were having a 28K euro additional revenue per month over the 3 MRs. So they were quite happy to go over this specific benefit sharing model. Initially, they were not super convinced because that was something quite new. So we do say, okay, as G, let's work in the partnership mode. Let's share the benefits or share the risk. Call it the way you want. So once we have this first discovering phase, we can really start the project. So that's what we called the blueprinting phase. And here the idea is, let's define the project team, let's work as a project team, let's leverage change management techniques. So 3 different points. First of all, define the vision. Where do we want to go? That's a super important point. In such kind of projects where you're going to implement changes, you need to be able at any point of the project to ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And this is why it's important to have vision, to have it in mind at every step of the project. Secondly, we are going to set up the goals and the indicators. Okay, we're talking about harmonizing the protocols. What does it mean? How we can measure success? What kind of indicators are we going to follow to ensure that those goals are achieved? And finally, setting up a team and setting up a timeline to be sure that we are going to work in an organized framework for the project. Once again, it's real. Let's have a look at an example. So here it was an MR City Excellence program in Luxembourg. And the idea for this customer was really broad. How can we leverage data to bring us visibility on our practices and take the right decisions to decrease the patient waiting time to get an appointment in MR and in CT? So a super broad question. So that was really an open question. And it was up to us to see, okay, thanks to data, on what lever can we play to achieve this goal? So we organized a change management workshop. So to set up a team, to understand what were their precise needs, to define what kind of indicators we would follow. And of course, we define a timeline and the project team, as I was saying. So this is the blueprinting phase, which is scoping the need. Once you've understood what's the need, once everybody is organized, you can start the implementation phase. And basically here it's about leveraging the data that we have. So let's start to get insights of how to achieve the goals thanks to the dashboards, thanks to the business intelligence tools. And here we're again talking about 3 different points. So the first one is about giving a first diagnostic over the practices. So taking into account your environment, taking into account your needs, we provide you a first diagnostic to tell you where you stand, okay? What's the starting point? Secondly, we will train the project team to make people autonomous on this kind of tool, share our expertise. And finally, we will build an action plan and identify on what we can play to achieve the objectives. So, example from the field, once again, the MR and CT Excellence program in Luxembourg. So some training content was shared. What you can see in the middle, the baseline statement was basically the diagnostic. So you can see there are some screenshots of the dashboards. And thanks to that baseline, taking into account the visions that they have defined and the goals that we have defined, we were able to define 3 levels of improvement. First of all, the harmonization of the practices in MR. So we do see that they were having a lot of protocols in the library. And when they were switching from one machine to another, when they were switching the patient from one machine to another, it was a mess for them to find back what right protocol should be used and if it was a protocol with the best image quality. So that's the first thing that we decide to work on. And this is going to have an impact on the workflow, right? Because when you are well organized, when the protocol library is well organized, the workflow is smoother, right? On the second point, we do see that they were having some variability in MR regarding the scheduling. So doing comparison between the time they were scheduling and the time they were performing, so the time that we measure thanks to the data, we see that sometimes they were a little bit over scheduling, meaning that the time was 20 minutes and the exams was lasting 12 minutes. So is there something that we can do about that? And finally, in CT, we were as well working on the scheduling improvement. And at some point of the day, we do see that they were having, gaps of activity. So could we investigate that? Could we try to understand the root causes of that to improve the throughput, to increase the throughput, and at the end of the day, decrease the waiting time to get an appointment in MR and CT, which is the goal of the project that was defined in the blueprinting phase. So now comes the most important part. Let's act, let's implement changes, and let's follow them closely. Let's start to leverage all the expertise that we have in the project team to make those changes a success. So the idea here was, first of all, to do close follow-up of the impact of the changes thanks to the digital tool and the project team feedback. Secondly, to engage the right resources that we need to achieve those goals. So clinical expert from GE. If we are talking about harmonizing the practices, we need some radiologists on your side that are going to define the golden rule about image quality, for example. And finally, of course, organize regular touch points to see how close we are from our goals and what kind of decision we can take to get closer to them. And taking the example from Luxembourg again. So working hand in hand with our Genie clinical resources, working hand in hand with their radiologists, we were able to split by 2 in the number of protocols, right? So we have a seat with radiologists from different anatomies, and we decide what protocol we can keep. Secondly, working on the scheduling in MR, we optimize the practices in cervical spine, lumbar spine, and knee, which were the most practiced procedures, and we were able to decrease the schedule duration and then to open new slots. And in CT, we do quite the same by working on the lumbar spine, sinus, and head exams and decreasing the schedule duration for them. And at the end of the day, it was helping us to open new slots as well. But the thing is, it was really a step-by-step work, you know, with different iteration. You take a decision, you measure what's the impact thanks to the dashboard, and you have an internal discussion with the project team to understand, is the change accepted by the people in the field? Because that's the most important, right? What I can propose you now, and I hope it will work a little bit better than what Leo was sharing before, is to have a look at a video to get a full overview of how successful an excellence program can be. So that's a 2-minute customer testimonial video. And I hope you will understand how important it is to work with a methodology and as a team to achieve those sustainable outcomes.
Les hôpitaux Robert Schuman, environ 200 000 examens par an, dont presque 27 000 IRM et plus de 30 000 scanners. Grâce à nos 3 solutions, DoseWatch, CT Excellence, MR Excellence, on peut garantir maintenant une optimisation de nos pratiques, une amélioration de la planification des rendez-vous et une optimisation également de la dose délivrée aux patients.
Nos travaux d'optimisation de dose, et ce qui nous a permis de réduire l'irradiation de l'ordre de 15% pour les scanners lombaires.
Grâce au programme CT Excellence, nous avons pu réduire les temps d'attente pour obtenir un examen au scanner de 1 semaine.
Nous avons augmenté ces examens à hauteur de 60 examens par semaine.
Nous avons pu réduire sur notre site Hôpital Kirchberg les délais d'attente d'IRM de 3 semaines, ce qui est vraiment extraordinaire.
De pouvoir être au plus juste dans les temps rendez-vous et le durée réelle d'examen, ça nous a permis à l'issue de gagner jusqu'à 11% de temps machine.
Donc on est vraiment en win-win avec les équipes de G qui sont toujours derrière nous, on les challenge, ils nous challengent un peu, on trouve toujours le temps pour converser, pour améliorer.
Être le contact privilégié pour les équipes de Paolo sur les différents projets, c'est les accompagner dans les prises de décision, dans les analyses qu'ils ont besoin de fournir pour tous les changements implémentés et également objectiver ces données avec un regard extérieur.
Effectivement, l'expertise apportée par G et la pertinence des dashboards et des données sur lesquelles on travaille nous a permis de relever les premiers défis et d'implémenter des solutions durables dans notre service. C'est quelque chose de très passionnant, ça motive mes équipes, ça sort du quotidien et ça permet d'optimiser notre façon de travailler de tous les jours.
So I hope that you're a little bit convinced by the importance of the methodology and the coaching piece to achieve those outcomes. Because if you think a little bit about this video, we are talking about a project based on digital. And at the end of the day, there may be 15 seconds of the video where you do see the dashboard. So you see, it's all about the human expertise and how we can work as a team, how we can work in partnership with our customer. And that's for us what is going to bring real changes and real outcomes. In Europe, this methodology has been successful on a certain amount of projects, as you can see. So once again, that's real. That's not about pilot projects. We have been able to have real results on the field. And we do now have a real expertise on that. And we do have a dedicated coaching team. So people as me who are working to deliver those projects. And we are now able to work on various subjects, such as the dose, such as the contrast, such as the workflow management in CT, in MR, in ultrasound. Okay. I was supposed maybe to stop the presentation at this point, but COVID crisis may be typically, unfortunately, an example where data can help to provide visibility. And we got a lot of feedback from our customer regarding what they were needing from us. And on top of that, we have decided to build some COVID dedicated analysis. And some projects start to run around Europe. Some analyses are starting as we are going out of lockdown. So I think in Brazil, it's going to come in a few weeks. So just to give you an idea of what data can bring us in this super specific context. So first of all, quantify precisely the impact of COVID-19 on your activity. How big was the drop? How big was the drop during the lockdown? What was the backlog that you've created during this drop of activity? And that's the first point. The second one is more about maybe how to comply with the new rules. You may have a revolution in medical imaging and in all the hospital, because all the care pathway that will change, because you will need to deal with the fact that some patients may be COVID infected, and so you need to take decisions about that. And specifically in medical imaging, we are talking, for example, about managing the inter-patient time to be sure that it's big enough for the technologists, for example, to work on the disinfection procedures and to be sure that the machine is fully disinfected between two exams. That's also somewhere where we can leverage a business intelligence tool, because you are able to create notification system to understand where this time is not enough to comply with the new sanitization rule, for example. So that's also an application. Thirdly, how you can prioritize the exam type to schedule based on the backlog mix, meaning that in this specific example, you see this customer, they have been losing a lot of onco activity during the lockdown, and now they want to know how many slots of oncology they need to plan to recover. And of course, they may need then technologists or specific staff or radiologists that are able to deal with those oncology exams. So that's also an example. And finally, and this one is a little bit more advanced, define a recovery strategy. And so, okay, I'm having a huge backlog that has been created during the lockdown. What kind of decision can I take to recover? How many times will it take me to recover? So for example, if I add extra hours, how many weeks will it take for me to come back to the initial situation? How many additional staff may I need? So you can use the historical data to do some projection. So that's also something that can support you. So considering the presentation that I just made, we were talking a lot about what we call descriptive analytics. So what happened? Why? Can I take decision? Can I implement changes and follow up the impact of those decisions? But the truth is, there's an ongoing value when you go from descriptive to predictive. And here, the question that you will answer is what will happen? So at GE, for example, we have started to work on a no-show app. And the idea is to leverage the historical data to predict the no-show probability over certain patients, certain moment of the day, certain devices, certain sites. And even more than that, we can go to and it's a little bit like the day after tomorrow, we can go to the prescriptive analytics. What should I do? The patient is calling me for an appointment. How do I immediately know where to schedule this appointment, depending on my devices fleet, on my staff, to be sure that this will be done on the most optimized machine with the best image quality and with the lowest waiting time possible? So once again, how can I learn from my historical data to take the right decision? So you see with the last slide, we may be only at the beginning of the digital journey, but I hope that you understand with this presentation how we can work in partnership mode with you and leverage data intelligence and human expertise to create and bring tangible outcomes. And what we do see in Europe and in the USCAN market and starting to see in the LATAM market is that there is a significant growth around this approach. And why is that? Because we have dozens of success stories at GE that are proving that we are able to bring results. And also because with the world of uncertainty that we're living in, where situations like the COVID are happening, visibility really do matters. You need to have a way to, in one eyesight, have a look at how your imaging department is working. So that's where those kind of solution can be used. I hope as well that this presentation resonates well with your daily needs and challenges. From the answer that I saw in the poll, in the initial poll, I guess it's yes. And I encourage you to reach to your G point of contact to get broader information about those excellence program and how we can simply start to work together. Muito obrigado for your attention, and of course now feel free to ask any question, and it will be my pleasure to answer.
Really good, really good. So combining data intelligence and human expertise is GE's answer. Really love that. So precision, as you mentioned, Francois, precision diagnostics aim at bringing better, targeted, and more individualized patient care. This is a huge impact in the people's lives. And today, Francois brought us, based on his own experience, very interesting success stories, such as Spain and Luxembourg cases, which had real results that positively impact the overall institutions, but also the patient. This was all possible thanks to Imaging Insights, one of G Healthcare's Edson applications, which provides comprehensive, actionable insights across medical imaging modalities, MR, CT, X-ray, ultrasound, etc., and multiple vendors by merging data from the machines and the risks. Thanks, Francois. So now I invite Noé to lead the Q&A session. So please, Noé, go ahead and let us know what are the questions come from the audience. Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Francois, for the clear presentation. It resonates a lot with our needs, I think. We already have 2 questions. The first one coming from our CEO, Rafael Palombini. He would like to know what are the requisites, what are the needs for implementing this kind of projects in a healthcare institution. And we know that IT infrastructure is a key part to a successful implementation. Maybe we can learn and value more that now that we have this crisis of COVID. But if you can share with us what are the needs for working with these solutions.
Yeah, if I can expand on this, thank you. Like I am a manager or a person from a clinic or a hospital, and I do want to start in this journey, right, that you described it. I need to capture this productivity. I need to focus on patient outcome and so on. So what would be the prerequisites for me to start in this journey? Like step 1, 2, 3. I think you showed like very clear the way to do that, but is there any requirement to start, like technically speaking, mindset, any advice on the clinics and hospital wanting to go in this journey that you recommend? Thanks.
So yeah, thanks for the question, Rafael. So we do spend a lot of time on the human expertise part. That's true. So you do understand so that on this side, there's no specific requirement, because the idea of this human expertise is to scope the need. So this is a part of the project to take into account your environment. On the data intelligence piece, we are talking about something that is running on virtual machines. So you just need some servers on which our team actually are going to install the solution. And what is important also, I mentioned it at some point, we are talking about a 10 years experience about connecting the devices, integrating the data, injecting the data into the dashboard. So this is now, I would say, footprint 3, if it's the word, meaning that this is integrated in the hospital ecosystem, and this is not something that is going to create problem of bandwidth or whatever. Okay, so it's just like another DICOM destination, like you would send exams to the PACS, for example. you can send them to those servers, and they are then processed by the digital tool. And so far we are working on a model that we call on-premise, meaning that it's like your Facebook, it's like your Gmail. That's something you're connecting directly on the hospital. It's internal to the hospital. No data is going out of the hospital. Okay, we need to be super clear on the legal aspect of that. No data is going at GE's side. And when people like me are going to do analysis, it's through a secure platform. It's never going to be like from any computer, right? So the data, the hospital is the owner, and the data stays in the hospital. It's processed on internal server there. Is it answering to your question, Raphael? You're still in mute, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I think we had an idea on how to really start the first steps on this journey. So thank you. Because I think it's like, there should be no doubt on how this effectiveness is needed in the healthcare sector, right? I think COVID has accelerated a lot, but no doubt that this is a journey with there's no turning back, right? We just have to follow that, in my mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a second question from an anonymous participant. He asked, how to justify the cost of those management where there is no legislation yet? And is there a productivity gain it can be linked to this practice?
So this is true. This is one of the issues that we may encountering in the country. So on most of the European country, there is a legislation around those which help us to promote those solutions. And it's true that when it comes to countries where there's no legislation, the dose optimization is giving you a focus on let's say quality of care. You can work on some research paper, for example, to promote the fact that you're having super low doses exams, and the way maybe you could generate revenue out of that, and I think this question may come as well, is if it's important for your referring physician, for example, in your geographical region, if that has an importance, that's something you can promote. You can identify your hospital as an optimized hospital regarding the level of dose. You can promote that. You can use that argument as I'm having high quality of care, right? So this can be an argument. This can be used on communication campaign through your patients. And as I was saying initially, patients are becoming consumers. So promoting the things that you're doing well, this is how the healthcare world is now. So this can be one way.
Sure, I completely agree. And here in Brazil, I saw sometimes this kind of approach. Those management, we can have a more quality approach, more than productivity. But I'm not a CT specialist, but I know that if you have a low dose, and if you are, conducting, for example, a cancer patient or some chronic disease patient that need to do many kind of CT exams, you can also add on that. I don't know, but sure, quality, I think it's the first approach to dose management. We have another question from Marina Viana, that's our Latin digital services leader. Can you please indicate what are the main customer outcomes already evidenced across the globe, and can you specify financial benefits?
So let's be honest. In this kind of project, it's always super important to keep the patient care at the middle, meaning the image quality, the radiologist satisfaction. But quite often we are going to work on improving the capacity without changing the staff, without changing the opening hours. So the main results that we are about harmonizing the practices and harmonizing and optimizing the schedule in order to increase this capacity. And it can go through different type of optimization, such as a lot of customers, they're having a fleet of devices. They're having a fleet of devices, of different devices. And for example, inside MR or inside CT, they are not having really specific rules on how they want to plan those exams. And specifically in MR, for example, we do know that different technologies may have quite important advantages. I don't know, 3T prostate, for example, or that such update, such software version on an MR is going to bring specific capabilities to the system. And sometimes this is not taken into account by the customers. They are not able to understand that if they plan all the prostate on one device, it could seem a silly decision. It could seem to be a simple decision, but at the end of the day, you gain minutes, hours and hours. And at the end of the month, you are able to improve your capacity. So let's say increase the capacity is the main outcomes that I would highlight. And also of course, having we often say that when talking about precision diagnostic, but this is the right exam on the right machine, actually. And this helps you to have a better image quality. This helps you to improve your capacity. So this is the main outcomes that we are delivering. And of course, then linked to the patient waiting time. You improve your capacity, you decrease the patient waiting time.
So Francois, thanks for the answer. Just to emphasize what you just said and make sure we all got it right. So you're saying first steps to make sure that we meet the patient need, but as a consequence that it always happens is we drive productivity to the sites, and in consequence a very positive financial benefit. Is that a fair statement?
Indeed. So start on harmonizing the practices, and once you know that when the patient is on the table, everything is optimized, you can start to unzoom and work on the scheduling. But the base is the patient care, and then once that it's optimized, you can start to, in some words, play with your scheduling rules, with the way you're using your coils in MR, for example, with the way you're using your ultrasound devices and managing them. So yeah, that's it. That's the way we.
So we're gonna have like a protocol, time saving, and then a scheduling saving, and so on.
Exactly. That's the way we usually deliver the project, right? And just to answer to your second part of the question, Marina, there's then always a financial benefits linked to that, indeed. So that's not usually what we are promoting at first, but yeah, the improvement of capacity can help you to justify the investment in a new machine, for example, or also simply, we are a success story that are proving that we can generate revenue thanks to those projects. So you can even promote that to have those excellence program at your site, because at the end of the year, they're not going to cost you anything. They're not going to cost you anything because you improve your capacity, and the benefit that you made out of it is going to finance itself, the tool, right?
Hey, can I, is there an order of questions, Noé? Or can I?
We have one more from the audience. I would like to add from the Marina question, but please.
Go ahead.
Oh. Just adding to the last question, you mentioned during your presentation a goal-oriented teams, and I would like to know how that can converge towards a win-win approach for monetization together with our customers. And if you believe that this can open up us to a new business model, maybe a risk sharing with some of our customers, if you have an experience on that from your.
Indeed. So we have, to be honest, a small experience of that because it's quite a new model. So there's mainly the example that I give you about Spain, but so everything is made in those excellence programs to be really adapted to the world of healthcare and working in subscription mode. That's the most important point, because it means that you're going to subscribe to those offers whenever you need it. And if at the end of 1 year you do not need it anymore, you can stop. You can only keep, for example, the access to the business intelligence tool. But you can really customize the offer that you need. This is also working very well with the COVID situation, for example. One day to another, you may need analytics. Let's subscribe to our offer because due to the COVID, you may need it. So this is the first financing mode that we're using. Subscription by itself is quite flexible. And also, yeah, the benefit sharing model, we are thinking about it more and more, presenting more and more to the customer. And as you're saying, this is a win-win approach. You do improve your capacity, you do achieve your objective, you're going to be satisfied. And on our side, we are able to create proof points, to create success stories around what we're doing. So it really, creates a great dynamism around those projects. So yeah, for us, that's partially the future for this kind of approach and offers.
Okay, perfect. I think during your answer, you also answered the other question for the audience. That is, how long would you need to keep an excellence program to continue to improve on those related patient care? Is there a ramp-up period, or it's permanent consultants you consider? I think you.
That's clear. No, and the question is clear. I would add one point still. That's something that I didn't maybe highlight a lot in the presentation, but one of the most important point as well with these continuous improvement projects is to understand that at the end of the first year, even if there's no more consultancy from GE, the project is still ongoing. And what I mean by that is when we are closing the project, when we are closing our support, the GE support, we are going to give tools to the customer to make sure that the change is going to last. And usually what we do, we set up a project team for the first year, for example, and then for the years to come, we advise them to create some operational mechanism. So talking about those, most of the customers that we have, once the dose excellence program was finished, for the years to come, they still have the dose team. They still have their monthly meeting about reviewing the dose. And they're able to do that because they were achieving results on the first year. And because most importantly, on this first year, we shared our expertise. They are now autonomous. They know how to use the digital tool, and they like it. They believe in it. And this is now their expertise. This is not anymore our expertise, right?
Rafael, please, if you feel free to ask.
Yeah, no, Francois, I'd like to check if you agree with thinking here. So let's assume that, again, I am in a clinic or hospital and I manage the department or whatever is my position, and I don't feel that I have lack of capacity, meaning I'm okay. I am able to cope with the existing demand. And then I think, because I am coping with the demand, that I don't need to focus on productivity. Don't you agree this is should not be thinking this way? I mean, despite the fact that there might be a specific city, neighborhood, or a location that not necessarily has a spike in demand, actually we are seeing the opposite right now, and I think we're going to revert this soon. But if we, despite the fact that we maybe are stable in demand, those productivity tools not only will help us to drive better service to our patients and customers, and also will help us with the cash flow of the institution, because maybe I will even be able to reduce a number of equipment or something, and I can sell it, rent it, or whatever, or dispose it, because or therefore don't pay the service contract, because although the demand can be stable in a certain period of time, I have the opportunity to reduce waste and therefore improve service and improve cash flow. Would you agree with this thinking?
You're fully into it. So the example that you're taking, actually we've encountered it in ultrasound. Ultrasound is quite a specific modality, because how many hospitals can you go to when are quite big and just find one person who knows how many ultrasound devices there is in the hospital? That's quite a complicated matter. It can seem simple, but that's a complicated matter. So fleet management is super important, indeed, to know if you're using your devices at best. And on the opposite, you can also justify that you need to do an additional investment. You're having one MR. For some reason, you're having a lack of capacity. You're doing at your best. You can also justify that you have a certain amount of exams to do and that you're not able to do them. You can justify and understand what kind of machine you need, because you know you exam mix. You know that you're doing a certain amount of neuro exam and MSK exam. You know that a specific MR devices is great at doing those exams. So you are able to say, okay, today I'm doing 20 minutes for my MSK exam. If I invest in this specific machine that is doing 15 or 10 minutes, I'm going to open new capacity. So it can be also the other example. But you're right, this could be taken in the two directions.
Right. Thank you.
Great. We have one more question from the audience, anonymous attendee. How does GE access multi-vendor data and consult on multi-vendor?
So, question, super interesting question. It would have been weird if it wasn't coming out. So an answer in two parts. So first of all, how do we deal with the data? So talking about modality here, we are talking about a 10 years expertise of integrating the data. So we do have specific teams at GE who are working on their daily job to inject the data into the dashboards, to read the data, okay, to understand in specific vendors where is the data stored. And most importantly, just talking about modalities here. You know, modalities are using DICOM format for the images, which is quite a harmonized one. And in the DICOM headers, most of the information is stored the same way for different vendors. And for the small variability that may exist, we do have dedicated teams that can work on that. That's the first part of the answer. Second part is about the consultancy part, and that's also a great question. Indeed, we are providing GE clinical experts that can help you to work on GE devices, and at some point, our expertise is blocked if we are going to see improvement opportunities on other vendors' devices. So this is where we are going to give you, let's say, advices on what we see, on what may be improved, but we will rely on you. And for example, that's something we're doing on those, to even in the project team, have a clinical education specialist from the other company, because we're going to highlight the variability thanks to the data, and he will be the one expert to implement the change. And so this is where we do need our partners, we do need our customers to really think about the people they want to employ in the project team. And we can work with other companies in this project team. That's not a problem. We're just here to raise the points when it comes to other vendors, to raise the points, to show what may be the improvement. And then it's from the customer sponsor to deal with implementing the changes on those specific other vendors' devices.
Great, thank you. We have maybe more 15 minutes, Leo told me. I have one more question here. We saw many cases of increasing productivity, and I would like to know if we can have another valuable approach, maybe trying to create demand, to help customers to create or to give them insights, or if you have some experience from the past cases,
yeah,
on how can we deliver that.
So this is actually that's great, because all the questions are linked. This is linked to the question about having those optimization software when there is no legislation about it. This is actually the same kind of question. Why is that? Because we do think that with this kind of software, when you're going to, for example, work on the waiting time to get an appointment, when you're going to work thanks to the RIS excellence parts, when you're going to work on the waiting time to get a report validated, that's something that you will communicate about with the surrounding region. You will be able to say, hey, I'm Hospital X. You, as a referring physician, if tomorrow you're sending me the patient for an MR of the knee, he's going to wait 1 week to get the appointment. And as the referring physician, you're going to wait 2 additional days to get your diagnostic being done, right? So communicating about the good practices needs a tool like that, needs a visibility. And when you communicate about the good practices, maybe that's something that will help you differentiate with the neighborhood hospital, right? Because you're able to provide a certain level of care to your patients, right? So this is another lever you can play on communication.
Perfect. Very nice link. We have a raised hand here. Edenice, você quer perguntar em português, em inglês? Fica à vontade, se quiser abrir seu áudio. Edenice, nos ouve? Bom, se quiser escrever também, fica à vontade, tá bom? Well, I will wait a little, and during that, maybe the last question from our part. This is from Leonardo Gross, asked for a deep dive on Luxembourg's success history that you shared with us. What were the biggest challenges they faced in implementing the project to generate all these outstanding results that you shared with us?
So this is where I would like to make a joke and ask you the question, Noe, regarding the presentation that I made. What is the most important point? No, just joking here. But you remember at the beginning of the presentation, I was telling you it's important to get a vision. It's important to get a vision because it's important to know where you're going. It's important to know where you're going. It's important to say, whenever you're doing the 1-year project, the 2-year project, and you're asked to do changes, you're impacted by those changes. You need to understand why those decisions are being taken. And this is why the vision is the first thing you're going to talk about, right? That's the first point, having a vision, having a well-defined goal. Because if you're taking decision without really knowing where you are going to go, that's never accepted by anybody on the field. And secondly, and this is linked with what I was saying, it's most likely that every decision that you're going to take are going to impact everybody at every level in your imaging department. So the person taking care of the scheduling, the radiologists that are reading the images, the technologists that are taking care of the patients. And this is why you need to have a project team. You need to have a project team. You need to have representative peoples from the different parts of the imaging department, because they will all be impacted at some point with the decisions that you're taking. So they need to be aware of why you're doing what you're doing. And there's nothing worse for someone to have the feeling that they're asked to do something and they do not accept it. They don't know where it's coming from. They need to be implied. That's really driving the success. And talking about, once again, about what's happening after the project. If you do not do that, you can have a super success on 1 year because you just force the decisions. But once we are gone, once there is no more human expertise or consultancy, everything is going to get back to what it was before because people do not have accepted it. So it's just a natural behavior for them to come back to what it was before. So you need to be sure that you implied every different actors of the imaging department in the project team.
Sure. Leo, I don't know if we have more time or if we should finish now. What do you think?
I think we have time for one more question if you have.
Yes, I have many. But
last question we have finished.
Perfect.
Right.
The last one, maybe. You know, as long as health systems are able to generate thousands and thousands of data from exams, patient records, workflow. If you, Francois, were the head of a healthcare institution, based on your experience from 400 customers, 4,000 devices, multi-vendor approaches, what would be your #1 priority to focus on data analysis? And to close all the remarks.
Yeah. So once again, we'll be linked with another question that Marina was asking before. Mm-hmm. And this will be really a simple answer, but okay, we need to remember what medical imaging is about. Medical imaging is about acquiring images. This is the starting point of all this, right? So for every improvement project that you're going to bring, whatever the size of the site, whatever the number of devices, before talking about super complicated improvements about scheduling, the patient care pathway, the waiting rooms, you need to start from the basis. You need to be sure that when the patient is on the table, what is happening is optimized, right? Because this is at the center of everything. If you try to work on the scheduling, improve the throughput, but at the end of the day, you do realize that your procedures were not optimized, that your acquisition was not optimized. It doesn't make sense. So you really need to start from this point. This is the central point. And then you can extend your model. And actually, that's what we've done in Luxembourg, working on those in city, working on protocols in MR. And then, okay, what's happening when the patient is on the table? We know that it's optimized. We can start to work about organization, logistics, working on the scheduling, having a look at what's happening at specific hours of the day. But at least we do not have to address anymore the part about acquisition. That one was optimized, right? And this is also entering to the main objectives of the medical imaging, which is providing better image quality for the radiologist. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the answers and for the class. Thank you, Francois.
Thanks, and you can ask me the question that remains off if you want. No
Okay.
problem.
I will do that, sure.
Super.
Ok, bom, excelentes as perguntas. Muito obrigado aí por trazer essas perguntas que são realmente extremamente importantes. Elas são muito endereçadas a resolver problemas, né? Então nós estamos aqui para resolver, estar próximo de vocês, dos seus desafios. Bom, vocês acompanharam conosco o Webinar Series Potencialize a capacidade e a eficiência operacional do seu equipamento por meio da inteligência de dados para um melhor atendimento mais acessível e centrado ao paciente. Esperamos que tenham aproveitado bastante. Eu particularmente sou fascinado pelo poder dos dados e como podemos ajudá-los a obter resultados significativos com esses que o François compartilhou conosco, que certamente vai melhorar a satisfação dos seus pacientes, da sua equipe, além de gerenciar melhor o uso e os investimentos dos seus ativos de imagem. GE Healthcare, Imagination Network, oferecemos as melhores tecnologias médicas, softwares e soluções em biotecnologia que estão transformando a saúde. Obrigado pela participação de vocês, obrigado, Noé, pela moderação, obrigado, Rafael, François, encore, une fois, merci beaucoup. E não percam a programação da Semana da Radiologia. Até mais. Obrigado.
Muito obrigado.
Valeu, um abraço.